Several parents have been concerned over a man who lives nearby who allegedly made threats to the school, saying parents would come here and pick up their bloody children. Authorities are looking for a man with a machete. Police were called out to the Barney's gas station right here behind me. It's on 9th Street and 4th Avenue, just around 3:50 this afternoon. Just to get an idea of what occurred, I am joined here by Sergeant Al Whitney. Now, Sergeant, can you just describe pretty much what you know? Police have not identified the suspect, but they do have a description. They're asking for the public's help in finding him. Sheriff's Office investigators right now are working on finding a relative to take care of the 11-year-old girl that was found inside the home. Now, here's a closer example of what homeowners are left with. As you can see here, this metal awning, it actually came from the house across the street. This is actually where all the ballots are being counted as we speak, as they're coming in. Now, the cell that the inmate would live in is very minimal, as you would expect. So it's basically what you see here. Unlike the Harrier jet seen here, some pilots say the F-35 is a lot easier to fly. We are live at the Yuma County Fair. Stay tuned for all the fun activities and what you can look forward to. The evening edition starts now. I'm standing just across the street from where this all happened. Now, police have since cleared this scene. Now, earlier this evening, I spoke to a neighbor, Keelanra Yuri. She lives just next door. She says she's heartbroken by the news, and tonight she feels a great loss.
He was always so smiley and waving and talked to us whenever he was outside and whenever we would come home. And, you know, the not knowing exactly what happened is the hardest part. But now that we know, it makes it a little bit easier, but still sad.
Keelanra Yuri says hearing the news that the sweet 3-year-old boy from next door has died from a gunshot wound is devastating. She says although she was not close to him, she feels a great loss.
My children are grown, but I have 6 grandchildren. I couldn't imagine. I think I would probably lose it.
Police say Wednesday morning they were called to this home on the 1200 block of 11th Avenue, and what they found was a 3-year-old boy suffering from a gunshot wound. He was taken to Yuma Regional Medical Center where he was pronounced dead. After further investigation, officers arrested this woman, 35-year-old Rachel Spree. She is tied to the death of her 3-year-old grandson, who police say got a hold of her gun. Spree is behind bars at the Yuma County Jail facing several charges, including manslaughter, misconduct involving weapons, possession of a dangerous drug, and possession of drug paraphernalia. Several neighbors tell us they used to see the 3-year-old boy playing right here in his front yard. Other neighbors who have lived in this area for decades say they are shocked.
Surprised, because nothing really ever happens here.
Meanwhile, to remember the little boy, Keelanra invites the community to join her for a candlelight vigil.
I never spent any time with them, but I'm going to miss seeing them.
Now, Keelanra and her daughter say they plan to hold that candlelight vigil in their front yard here tomorrow around 9 p.m., and they say the public is welcome to join them. Again, this is the 1200 block of 11th Avenue. Reporting in Yuma, Aisha Morales, News 11. The Department of Public Safety gave me a closer look at how they track down and examine impaired drivers. And just as you said, more and more, alcohol is not the only factor. They patrol our highways, protecting us from the impaired.
So I'm going to turn you back over to the officer that arrested you.
In 2011, there were 265 alcohol-related fatalities in Arizona. But alcohol is not always the factor.
I'll look at this whole sheet and I'll take the totality of everything on here and I'll determine if you're under the influence of the drug or not.
According to the Arizona Governor's Office of Highway Safety, the number of DUI drug arrests increased by 12% in 2012, raising general DUI arrests to 14%.
Impairment is impairment, and the way the laws are written in this state, if you're impaired to the slightest degree, you're impaired, be it by alcohol or drugs. There's no difference.
To handle drug-impaired drivers, the Department of Public Safety calls in a DRE officer.
The DRE program stands for Drug Recognition Experts.
Not today. So when's the last time you did it?
Arizona is actually the case law state in the nation. We were the first ones in this state to actually successfully testify as an expert in court and bring in the Drug Recognition Expert program to actually help in the prosecution of impaired drivers.
To become drug recognition experts, officers and other approved public safety officials go through a 3-phase training process.
They go through a very extensive program that teaches them how the body reacts to the 7 types of drug categories there are. So the way the eyes react to light, the way their blood pressure will react to that drug, the way their heart rate will increase or decrease.
News 11 exclusively followed a large DUI task force, this one in Phoenix, in action, where officers from different agencies set up these stations and went out on patrol, bringing back anyone who they suspect is driving under the influence using top-notch technology.
This is a mobile live scan. It captures fingerprint images for people who are being arrested and charged with a crime tonight, which would most likely be a DUI.
Although both drug and alcohol-impaired drivers put innocent lives at risk, one can be worse than the other.
We see a lot of the times drug-impaired drivers are actually show signs of impairment far greater than alcohol sometimes.
Once they're taken in, the testing begins.
When you start looking at this whole thing, and I'll be honest with you, because we've been doing this for so long, you got to look at the person. And you got to talk to the person.
The DRE expert initiates conversation with the driver. This is followed by an extensive process of figuring out what drug the driver is on.
You said not today.
Yeah, no.
So when would that lead me to believe you had some yesterday?
When I say drugs, it doesn't mean any kind of illegal drug per se. It would include medications that are prescribed by a doctor, or in some cases recommendations by doctors to take a specific medication. Just because you're prescribed something does not mean it's okay to drive a vehicle on that. If you're impaired by a drug or what we call a metabolite, which is when the drug's broken down in the body, if that impairs you, you're DUI.
It's important to note that even if a simple painkiller impairs your driving, you can be put behind bars for putting innocent lives at risk.
When it comes to being impaired by drugs or alcohol, the punishment's the same, but there's just laws specific to each one of those.
And once a DRE expert has determined through examination what the driver is under the influence of, they use this in the court of law.
Her pupils were certainly constricted. So then you start looking over here. Well, there's only one thing that's going to make it constricted, and that's going to be a narcotic.
It's all to keep you and your loved ones safe on the highway.
That our drug recognition experts in our agency are all over the state. We're there to make sure that we are stopping it before it becomes a fatal crash. And in Yuma specifically, we have people down there that are trained for this. We want to make sure that people in your community understand that we're out there to make sure that you get home safe and everybody else gets to their families, and we don't have to ever investigate a fatal crash again.
The Governor's Office of Highway Safety helps fund many DUI task forces throughout Arizona, just like the one we saw. Stay tuned for part 2 of Dangers on the Highway as the Vehicular Crimes Unit with DPS shows us how they investigate deadly crashes. That's tomorrow night on Nightside at 10 Mountain, 9 Pacific.